9 and 11. The sponsor of those two pieces are not here. I'll move on then to Bill 35. Senator Pangilinan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move that Bill 35 COR, as introduced, be placed in the third reading file for voting, and I'd just like to discuss it very briefly.
Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Oh.
Well, let me just take care of this one, then we'll go back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once again, Mr. Speaker, Bill 35 is an act to repeal and reenact a section of the public law relative to the composition and duties of the task force and the return of TGen properties. When the legislature returned the TGen properties that were eligible to be returned, there was a group of landowners, of course, that were not able to get their property back in the TGen returns through that process. And originally there was a task force that was constituted to identify properties for the return of any other available property that these individuals could have been given a choice to decide on whether or not a land exchange was an acceptable method of compensating them for the fact that their properties could not be returned because they were either under the the runways, or restricted due to covenants in the return of other properties in that area. And so that was never done with regards to the recommendation of properties for possible return and exchange. And so this bill would reenact that portion of the law for the task force, require that members of the original landowners be part of the task force, and then the appropriate Guam agencies like the Ancestral Lands Commission, Land Management would help, and their task would be within a fairly short amount of time take a look at properties available within the Guam inventory that are suitable for a land exchange, report back to the legislature and the governor, send us a bill, and then this legislature would then act on the recommendation and the governor and determine how best to proceed with making these landowners whole with regards to the fact that their properties will never be able to be returned under the TZN land returns. And so I ask my colleagues for the support on this bill.
Are there any other speakers on Bill number 35? Senator Munya-Barnes, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I stand and rise in full support of Bill number 35, and I'd like to commend the good author from Barragata for presenting this bill. And as we talk with a lot of those original landowners who are still around and just trying to seek some guidance, it comes to mind that one of the questions that were asked was for those who could never get their properties back, or those who had the properties, if they were to form some kind of, how would they say, group to, or task force in reference to seeking that, would compensation be given to those who could not in any way get their lands back in because of the federal guidelines of the FAA ruling within that area? So if the good author could yield to that, I hope I'm stating that question right in this reference to it.
Speaker Pangilinan, do you yield, and would you provide an answer?
Yeah, the question was,
if those who were already notified that they couldn't get their property back, knowing that there was existing provisions for that with this task force, is there any process that could ascertain, even looking to get at least getting their families to getting at least something back, if it's not the land, if it's not the real property?
the two ways of addressing this compensation issue. There's an existing way with regards to the ancestral lands and the land bank trust, in which properties that are within the land bank that are developed, the proceeds go into this land bank trust, and those individuals whose properties are not able to be returned would participate in the distributions of the trust itself. And this bill would, in addition to that, because that would still exist, we're not touching that, would allow the consideration of a land exchange. So if it wasn't property, if it isn't property under this process, then it could be from the distribution of the Ancestral Lands Bank Trust where they would be compensated for not having their property returned.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really appreciate that comment. And maybe just to add on to that, Mr. Speaker, if I can ask the good speaker if he can answer this, is in reference to the airport itself, and knowing that there's some properties that the airport may try to ascertain or take back for the use of the airport expansion or the airport development. Has there been any, I guess my question to that is the airport working closely with these families who know that their lands will be affected by this, and will that be included in this process? I know George Salas spoke about it. What happened is some of them say that they already know that the airport wants their land. You know, Lower East Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, this property, or this bill affects property that is not able to be returned to the original landowners. So if the properties have been returned to the original landowners, it would not be affected by this. Now, I think maybe the good senator is referring to properties that were returned to the original landowners in which there's been a question because of whether or not that was allowed under the deed of conveyances. And so that's not going to be covered by this, because that's still in limbo with regards to what is the status of that return, although these people have title issued by the Ancestral Lands Commission. So I would think that those individuals would have their property will not be covered by this because the property's been returned to them already. Now, if they're to be taken back or the airport decides that they need them, then they would have to work out an arrangement with those landowners. Or if the government of Guam was going to take it back, then that'll have to be again worked out between those landowners and the government of Guam. But there are this group of landowners who've had their properties returned, who the government of Guam, and I've continually put it in question because the government agencies and departments of these government of Guam said that's not a legal return because it was not allowed under the deed of conveyance. And so those individuals, if the government took their property back, would be covered under this bill. If it didn't, because they determined that the conveyance issued by the land trust under Public Law 26-100 is valid, then they wouldn't be covered under a land exchange. They'd have that property.
Does that satisfy you, Senator Barnes?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I really appreciate the good author sharing his perspective on this matter. And Mr. Speaker, I do think that this is a very good bill, and I know that this will definitely move forward. This task force will definitely move forward the process of the return for these T's and properties to those landowners. So that in case, I'd also like to ask the good sponsor if he would include me as a co-sponsor to this bill.
There being no objection to the request to be a co-sponsor, so ordered.
Thank you. Si Dios Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Palacios, for the information of the senators that just joined us, we're down to number 9, bill number 35 on the Tejan Land Task Force.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I simply rise in support of the Bill 35. There have been still unresolved issues or matters that actually concern especially the original landowners or their heirs, and this would, I know, would provide the process by which some kind of resolution to those issues or those questions still remain unresolved, would be, of course, be able to be processed through this bill. And, of course, I rise in support of this. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Palacios. Anybody else wish to speak on Bill number 35? Senator Rector.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise in support of this bill. The heirs of the property in the Tejan area definitely need to get their issues worked out so that they can get what is truly and justly theirs. And I think this is a great bill, and it's going to help facilitate this process. So I just wanted to rise in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? There being none, speak. Oh, wait. Senator Eda.
Just a couple of things, Mr. Speaker. First of all, the sponsor would yield on the second page there on line 8. Was that intended to be the governor of Guam shall wait a minute. The chairperson, I'm sorry, line 3. The chairperson of the task force shall submit a report. No, I'm stand corrected. On line 7, the governor of Guam shall submit proposed legislation within 30 days upon receipt of the report to the Speaker of the Legislature. It seems that the report should go to the governor, who then, based on that report, shall submit a proposed legislation to the Speaker or to the Legislature.
No, the report is in line 3 to 6. He gets a report.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. The other item that I'm concerned about is on line 13 on the first page. I noticed that the exchange of land can be based on value for value or size for size. Do you foresee that as maybe presenting some kind of a problem?
No, because I think this is a recommendation that they would make, and then the governor would take that recommendation based upon the report, and then fashion something that would either probably either do one or the other.
Okay. And and my final question is, does this legislation kind of contemplate where this available land might be to make exchanges with? And I guess it will have to be Crown land, correct?
That's correct. There are some properties that are within the inventory of either ancestral lands itself, and then some of the properties that were transferred to the government of Guam actually had in their deed of conveyance that these properties shall be used to resettle those the people whose lands were taken who were not able to have them returned. So there are some deeds that were issued to the government of Guam which contemplated being used to resettle the Chamorros whose properties are not able to be returned.
Okay, aside from Crown lands.
Aside from Crown lands.
Okay. And I guess the only really large parcel of Crown lands that may be available for this purpose is the one up at Dos Amantes.
There's one there. There's one in the back road to Anderson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's
by the GCC
Yeah.
Borja place. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any other speakers on Bill 35? If not, Speaker Ben, do you wish to close?
I just want to thank my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, for their time and attention to this matter, and certainly plead for their support. Thank you.
Is there any objection to moving Bill 35 to voting file? No objection, so ordered. Senator Barnes, do you wish to address 23, or do you want to wait for the author?
Yeah, you know what, I'll give him,
Can I do mine next?
yes, do this, and if you're not, then I'll do it.
Okay. I just didn't want you. All right, then we'll go to Bill 41.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You
Please.
recognize? Yes. I'd like to move that Bill 41 LS, as introduced, be placed in the third reading file for voting, and I'd like to discuss the bill very briefly.
Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Bill 41 would expand one of the most successful, nonprofit organization public-private partnership, you might want to call it, between the government of Guam and an entity outside the government for the construction of recreational facilities. The bill, as originally drafted, allowed the development of soccer facilities at the Harmon soccer field, up where you have there right now on Harmon Loop Road, for the development of a soccer sports stadium. And the feature of that, of course, was that they would be given about $1 million of tax credits available to them. But in order to take advantage of $1 of tax credit, the Guam Soccer Association, or the Guam Football Association, which is their legal name, had to pitch in and contribute $1 of cash towards the development of the facility also. So what in effect happened was we now have the total resource of $2 million, $1 million contributed by the government through the tax credit program, and if they were going to take the entire $1 million in hard cash assets that the Guam Soccer Association had to match, or contributions from them to build the facilities. And we have a beautiful facilities up there today, Mr. Speaker, that allows over 5,000 children to participate in the growing sports of soccer on Guam. And we've seen the fruit of that, because now you have people young children who started participating in the soccer program before we had facilities. When they were growing up or in high school, had these beautiful facilities, regulation size and so forth, and have been able to hone their skills. And because of that, we have now children that are going to college on full college scholarships, academic as well as sports scholarships for soccer. And it just has been a great program, and it's all been enhanced and made easier for the organization, parents, and the children themselves by the existence and the construction of that facility. The bill was originally written only allowed the tax credit to be used for facilities at the Harmon site. And what this bill does is simply expand, because we were able to construct all of that facility, or when I say we, I meant the Guam Football Association, in partnership with the government through its tax credit program, was able to construct all of that without exhausting the $1 million in tax credit, because of the requirement for $1 matching. And so they still have a little over $400,000 left in that tax credit authorization, so we're not authorizing any new tax credit at all. And we're now allowing them to take that remaining balance and use it to construct soccer facilities in the South. And it is time that we move to the South, provide them with the same kind of facility, world-class, lighted facility and so forth. And the Guam Football Association has graciously said that that's our mission, is to provide, good quality sports facilities for the program of soccer on Guam. And let's duplicate what we've been able to do up north, down in the South, because our people deserve the same. So all it does is it authorizes the use of the existing tax credits to allow for development of sports facilities in the South in a piece of property that was designated earlier for the construction of sports facilities for Guam Southern residents. And so I ask my colleagues for, once again, their indulgence and their support on this bill, so that we can provide the same opportunities, the same facilities for our children in the South as we currently have for the children in the North today. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Sidusmasi.
Thank you very much, Senator Respicio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in full support of this initiative, and I want to echo the sentiments of the previous speaker. But what the previous speaker didn't tell us is that he was the original, the father of Public Law 2433, which created this program that he talked about at the Derrida Sports Complex. He was extremely humble to say that what he did in the 24th Guam Legislature resulted in a, if you will, there is almost a community within a community. If any one of us, if any of you drive by on a Saturday afternoon, even a Sunday afternoon, you would see so many people at that area. And we know that the Guam and that this organization has really provided prevention and positive alternatives to keeping our children off the streets and keeping our families together. I know the rules prohibit us from speaking to other bills that are before the legislature, but I just want to say that if the author would yield, and on Section 3, it says that the governor is authorized to establish through Department of Land Management in coordination with the Agate Municipal Council and Guam Football Association to develop regulation-sized soccer fields and related facilities. What happens after the governor makes this authorization? Would there be any, then thank you, would there be any need for any legislative approval after the authorization is made?
I don't think so. It contemplates in the original bill that when we approve this program, that we are approving we're approving them working together and entering into an MOU. At least that's how we did the original one.
Are we talking about the same lot number 477 in the village of Agate that was identified for a recreational area?
Yes, the Southern Recreation Sports Complex. I believe so.
Because, Mr. Speaker, I was wondering, I was wondering, and there is companion legislation. There's a 26.5 acres in the village of Agate, lot number 477, and I understand that this bill provides for tax credits, but I'm thinking that we should go a step further and actually authorize the property. This is something that the mayor of Agate is in support of, and I've been reassured by the gentleman that it was an oversight, that at the same time he had a hearing on this bill, it was an oversight that he didn't include that hearing at that day as well. But I got a commitment to hold a public hearing. So because there is companion legislation and because we want to make sure we're talking about the same property, I wondered then if the gentleman will be open to an amendment on page 3, line 1, to simply say the establishment of regulation-sized soccer fields shall be subject to legislative approval. So that way our efforts will be in concert with what the bill's intending to do. And that the administration doesn't get ahead of the legislature and develop these soccer fields in areas other than what the Guam Federal Football Association themselves have been eyeing together with Mayor Tayama.
Speaker Pangilinan, we'll take a short recess. We're back on the record.
Yeah, in consultation with the author of this bill, there's no objection that on page 3, at the end of line 1, to add in the words, the establishment of regulation-sized soccer fields shall be subject to legislative approval.
Do the clerks have that? Did you say page 3, line 1?
Yeah, at the end of line 1. The
Well, it's
words
at the
are,
very top of the page.
yeah, to add a new sentence, the establishment of regulation-sized soccer fields shall be subject to legislative approval.
Does anybody wish to speak to the amendment by Senator Respicio? Senator Espaldon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I'm just kind of confused. I mean, basically, in prior to the addition, you have the governor we're authorizing the governor to establish, in coordination with the Agate Mayor and Department of Land Management, to establish, to develop regular-sized soccer fields. And then now we're going to say the establishment of regular-sized soccer fields is subject to legislative approval. I mean, isn't that what we're doing? By, even without that sentence, isn't that exactly what we're doing? That we're authorizing the governor to authorize it, and then we're authorizing him to do it, and then he has to come back here for legislative authorization. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry?
We'll take a short recess. Work this out.
Do they have to come back? I mean, but why are we authorizing if they have to come back?
No, this is the property that's already identified for the Southern Sports Complex. It's already identified. No, it's inclusive. That's a huge tract. So we're allowing him within the tract to establish it in that tract. There was no reservations under the Land Reservations Act. There was a tract property reserved for the Southern Sports Complex. Because I know we introduced legislation trying to do that a lot of times. Yeah. I'm not sure whether or not this is going to be resolved. Well, that's what we saw. We can fix it later.
Well, it's not so much the amount. It's just concept. In this legislation, it says the governor's authorized. In other words, we're giving the governor authorization.
Does this give him the authorization to execute the lease? Because that's what Bill 21 would do, would actually authorize him to execute.
Yeah, we can do it without the land.
Right, but that's not. No, that's the way of establishing. Agate is a Catholic. You can't touch that. That's Catholic. That's the Catholic cemetery. And then you said this
The terms and conditions is 25 years.
can, but I thought, I was told that it was the Agate lot. It was the Agate lot because it wasn't public cemetery, it was Catholic cemetery. He's asking, the place where the field where we had, the sports complex. He was saying, he was asking me about what the Parks and Rec talked to me about was a place where they were going to make the cribs. Lots. But I'm saying the extension that they were looking at, I was telling them they couldn't touch that one because that is Mark Carmel's, which is a county.
No, see, that was the whole,
That's the one with the fire station.
I'm not really sure where it was.
How is that entry into this?
No, because.
Well, no,
Oh, that's a different discussion.
Well, that's what, yeah.
No, it's not a different discussion, it's just trying to see what's the same. The area that we're talking about
the Seventh-day Adventist radio station, transfer station, there's like 247,000 square meters there. That's what was designated to be part of the Southern Sports Complex, a portion of that. So we're giving them like 30,000 square meters within that plot to develop their soccer.
I'm just wondering about, I mean,
Authorize the government to execute a lease for 25 years, for that 25 years, that's them work out the lease agreement in section 2.
so you're gonna change to section 3, and where is that?
I'm just asking if maybe we take that bill and just.
Section 2, right?
Why don't we just pass?
As is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only, my question just refers to the amendment we're making to this, right? That it was authorized the governor to go ahead, and then you gotta come back to legislative authorization. It's like, well, wait a minute, are we just authorizing it to happen already?
Yes, because in the original bill I had, it authorized the governor, the governor and Parks and Rec actually enter into a license. It's not in here.
In the original bill.
It says that there shall be a license. Guam Association and Parks and Rec shall enter into an MOU which they would have a license. Right. And they developed it, the MOU outlines the schedules, access to the property, access.
Right.
So that authorization to enter through the MOU
Is already in law.
is already in law.
Right.
So it would,
It
if
applies
they
to
were
this.
to do it in the South, they would still do the same MOU. That's what I'm saying.
Right, and so, but this bill, this section, residents authorized to establish development regulations as with the soccer fields.
Right. That would be the MOU, because he directs Parks and Rec.
Right, no, but I have no problem. I'm just saying, that one of them was as established of soccer fields, we need legislative approval, so aren't we just doing that here?
Yeah. I think what it was, is the terms and conditions maybe need to be.
This one says steady though, because is hereby amended to read as follows. Only on 2423. Are we still looking at steady or is this should be added? On section 2. I know the old law it's similar, so but you're amending it. This one is hereby amended to read as follows. I'm looking at the right bill, right? And it's 200, I know. I know this was stated in Derrida, but shouldn't this be?
No, we're amending this to be A. This is A now, and then we're adding B.
Right, but B doesn't say, no, but it doesn't talk about the square meters because shouldn't that provision also be in the section B? No, it's also 200, no, the sports complex. I know this is steady, but also there's over 200 and some square.
No, I don't know how big that is.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, shouldn't at least this provision be included to amend it to be
No,
in this?
the reason why we didn't do that is because the soccer association doesn't know at this time exactly how big the facility they're going to build. They don't know if they're going to build one field or 3 fields. So that's why we're asking the governor, the municipal plan council, these guys, to develop regulations like soccer field and related facilities.
Okay,
So they will then go in, take a look, determine the size they need. and what they're gonna do. Yeah, that's why.
okay, I just wanted to make sure because if we have to quote it,
Yeah.
then maybe just saying
Because we don't, the soccer association couldn't give me, couldn't say.
the actual
I want
size. It's just like the baseball field. Every standard baseball field
Right.
is so many 450
Yeah,
yards
but they didn't
wide
know-
plus.
But they didn't know whether they wanted only 1 or 2.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, but that's why I'm asking this property that we're talking about in the sports complex.
Right.
It's not just going to encompass the soccer field, isn't it? Weren't they trying to?
No, it's only part. They don't get the entire section.
Okay. No, speak to it. Okay. Oh, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was wondering if you were going to get on this session. All right, so I'll only talk to you for an hour and 45 minutes.
In the interest of time, while they work out this amendment, Senator Rector, did you want to speak to the bill? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Munya Barnes.
I promise I won't take too long, Mr. Speaker. Sizos Masi Talo for letting me speak on this Bill 41, and I'd like to thank and extend an dunkle na Sizos Masi to the good author for making me his co-sponsor to this very worthwhile bill. You know, as an advocate for sports and health, and knowing that we can finally build a facility for the folks down south, I truly believe that in the statement, build it and they will come. And I do know that the folks in the southern part of Guam will be extremely grateful in this. As for many years, Mr. Speaker, just in the sport of this soccer, football, as a lot would know it, but soccer, as us older folks will know it as. Before, Mr. Speaker, the number one sport on Guam used to be the sport where America's sport was also Guam's sport, was baseball. Then the creation of soccer, which is now called football, became very popular. The kids had shifted from playing softball to or baseball to soccer, and when we looked, and the good sponsor looked at taking these credits and making sure that we could take this formula and work it so that the southern community could realize a facility of this magnitude for the enjoyment, just not for the kids, but for even the adults. Everybody within the area was very excited and happy to know. And I think as we look at sports, Mr. Speaker, to be not just healthy for our children, for our athletes, we know that with that brings a lot of camaraderie, friendship, extends to athletes to being healthy players, very not just healthy players, but very good players, being able to show and share their talents and compete with others, but to be able to bring that down and to show that the Southern spirit is still ingrained in everything that they do. I think that this would be a definitely big plus for the community, and I just want to take the time to ask that my colleagues support this effort, as again, as noted, that this realization of looking into an avenue that could build this facility and work closely with the mayor's office, with the MPC, with the association, working closely together to build this and make it become a reality, is a win for the island of Guam. And as you know, for Guam, we're 365 days of the year warm, and literally could bring into a greater vision for bringing sports tourism to Guam. You know, like I said earlier, you build it and they will come. But knowing that Guam is summer all year round, we can look into having other neighboring islands and neighboring countries, and even Pacific and international countries coming here, and not just training, but competing in this side of the road. And I think having this beautiful tropical island, I think this is a win for everybody. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Barnes. Senator Rector, you're recognized on Bill 41.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I commend the author of the bill on the intent of the bill. Having soccer fields and sports facilities for our children is incredibly crucial and paramount to the well-being of any society, most importantly ours, because we live here. Unfortunately, I believe this is the wrong way to do it. These should be public facilities that were built by public institutions for the public. Tax credits are generally a bad way to finance things. And not to seem like I'm making this up, I got this from the Office of Public Auditor's report. And this was a report that she did about a year ago on the whole program. And then I just verified with her recently to find out if the conditions were still the same. I'd like to read a little bit from this report. It says, talking about this very specific tax credit system, this says, lack of verification and documentation of the dollar-for-dollar matching requirement paid by GFA amounting to $595,440 for the soccer stadium tax credit. Another problem was a potential breach of standards of conduct for public officers and employees as outlined in 4 GCA section 15204 may have occurred when a former GETCA acting administrator authorized the 4 soccer stadium tax credits of $398,663 for the subsidiary company and was hired by the parent company, and a current GETCA acting administrator authorized tax credits of $167,827 to the subsidiary company where a close relative is employed by the parent company. See, a lot of people don't understand. There's a reason that we have procurement policies for government money. And the reason we have these good and stringent procurement policies is to keep stuff like this from happening, so that we constantly have a watchdog program to make sure the public money is spent in the right way and it keeps down corruption. How do we know that it works? Because we keep catching people at it. Unfortunately, with these, there's problems with it, right? Let me go on to read her conclusion. First, Standard & Poor's, which we've heard a lot about in the last week, stated that the income and gross receipts tax have been relatively stable over the past few years, but the continued implementation of exemptions and credits has prevented those tax revenues from realizing stronger growth. She goes on to talk about, in this report, how these tax credits basically completely skew how the government of Guam prioritizes their spending of money. Whereas we always talk about the fundamental priorities of the government are health, education, and public safety, this money gets taken out before we ever spend a cent for those, because there are no controls over it and there's no oversight on the program. So while I really think these kids down in Agate deserve to have a soccer field and we should finance it in an appropriate way, if these corporations want to contribute money to it, maybe we could raise their taxes by just a little bit to help pay for soccer fields for every child on the island. But doing it through tax credits hasn't worked out very good for the people of Guam, and so I cannot stand in support of this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Rector. Senator Tom Mehta.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I think if there's an organization that certainly has had a good success in organizing youth and putting together facilities, certainly the Soccer Association has done quite well. And, it's really quite gratifying when you drive by that Harmon Loop Road, the facility that they have there, on a weekend when you see all kinds of kids out there and parents getting involved with their kids. And that certainly is very healthy, and that's the sort of thing that we want to certainly continue to promote. And I'm glad that we have that facility up there and that this group has in fact gotten together and spent their time to put the facility together and to keep the programs going. As I understand it, they've had so much success that they really need to build another facility, and I too will support movement in that direction. However, I guess I have somewhat of a dilemma with the bill because of the timing. In essence, what we're giving out is a one up to $1 million worth of tax credits, and that means basically a tax credit is only as good as the tax liability that it is going to offset. And so that tax liability that's out there is something which the government, our government right now, I'm sure is counting on. And with this tax credit, that's going to be that much less money that will be available to come in. I don't know that this is the time. Now, supposedly projections have it that maybe by around 2011, 2012, we're going to be swimming in taxes from this military buildup. And maybe that may be the better time to apply these tax credits. And so I would like to proffer the following amendment. And again, it is to maintain that tax credit, but that I would like that in section 4, I believe that's page 3, to proffer the following amendment. And that amendment would then add in that section 4, that's I guess section 77-301, is to add a new subparagraph B, which would read as follows. Tax credits eligible under this statute shall not be available until after October 1, 2011. And basically what this does is it just defers another couple of years. There's nothing that says that the construction cannot still be undertaken. I'm sure that the companies that are going to be building this are going to be still around in 2011. I'm sure they're still going to have tax liabilities that they're going to need to offset. And so these tax credits will still be available for them to be able to take advantage of. And so that, Mr. Speaker, is the amendment that I would like to proffer. And for me, this is really quite a quandary, because on the one hand, you want to promote any activities that promotes family activities and the health of the children, getting them out there, running around, getting healthy. And on the other hand, we also read in the paper about schools not having enough cash to educate our children properly, or money for public health to make sure that we got good health care, at least for those kids. So I think the timing, if we could just defer it for another couple of years, they can, so whatever tax, whatever construction is done that's eligible for a tax credit, it'll still be recognized, but not until after October 1, 2011. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does everybody understand the amendment proffered by Senator Adat? Do we need to have it in writing, or does everybody just understand the deferral? Okay, who wishes to speak on it? We'll start with Senator Arkin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I understand really the concern that the mover of the amendment has in terms of trying to defer any obligation of this government of Guam, so that in fact, or defer any tax credit that would be provided to a private enterprise or nonprofit organization, so that in fact it does not impact the revenue base over the course of the next 2 years. I think there's a couple of things that I'd like to share in regards to that. And this really hits home when we're talking about deferring obligations. We just passed a general obligation bond that would authorize the governor of Guam to immediately go out into the bond market and access up to $202 million to be able to pay for a landfill. That would automatically, Mr. Speaker, translate into a financial commitment between $22 million on up to perhaps $35 based on the authorization that was provided. We also provided a mechanism in there, several mechanisms. One is a public-private partnership. The other one is a private activity bond. We also looked at providing other options available to the executive branch, the lease financing option. Well, the provision here that I see provides almost something similar to perhaps those creative approaches that were established a few years back, because it's already been a proven mechanism to be able to get these things constructed. Mr. Speaker, this is a measure, or the concept was born several years back. And a number of the board of directors of this soccer association, the Guam Football Association, said, why don't we build another facility in the south? Why don't we work on trying to identify property? Well, in this case, property was identified. In this legislation, there would be authorization to go out and to take advantage of tax credits, which will be matched with actual financial contributions, so that in fact, we can see the construction, the timely construction of a soccer facility or a sports complex that would accommodate the recreational requirements of our youth in the south, and in many instances, the entire island community, because our children will be traversing down to the south to be able to join in certain tournaments. And I look at that and I say, okay, there's a proven method. Once that authorization was provided, once that property was provided many years ago, this organization, based on the matching tax credit requirement of their contribution to the local community, went out and aggressively constructed that facility that we see today. It is a world-class facility, Mr. Speaker, because it recognizes, or it's recognized by national as well as international competitive organization. And you look at that investment and you say, okay, it could conceivably translate into a loss or an offset of up to $1 million in tax credit. And then I hear some comments about, yes, we have dilapidated facilities with education. Yes, we have other requirements within this government. That's all true. But do we understand, or at least I'd like to say that there's something beyond looking at a facility. It was mentioned about the familial support that is provided. When you have individuals who are starting at such a young age and joining soccer associations or organizations, competing competitively on island, off island, regionally, nationally, internationally, and when you have, I believe the number is upwards of 3 of our soccer players who are presently in a scholarship off island, getting their education and also participating in a sport that they love, I think that the facility that was constructed in Harmon, in Deridu, basically speaks for itself, Mr. Speaker. An investment of $1 million a year, foregoing $1 million a year. In my book, I would forego $1 million a year in a heartbeat if I know that in the end, the product is going to be very similar to the facility that we have in Harmon and in Deridu. And in this case, it's for our people in the South. You know, if our former speaker was here, because obviously this is going to be located adjacent to his home. If he was here, and I'm trying to contain myself because obviously coming from the South, I can almost assure you that he would be raising his voice to a certain extent and saying, why is it that when it comes to the South and we're concerned about $1 million investment, that we don't want to do it? Why is it that we're thinking about deferring an investment in our kids in the sport of soccer because it's in the South? If this facility was going to be located elsewhere, perhaps a little bit closer to the north, I don't know if we'll be having this discussion. I may be mistaken. But Mr. Speaker, it really hits home when we have a wonderful opportunity here. Yes, it's foregoing $1 million in tax credit. Mind you, that will be matched by this organization in their contribution towards the construction and the preparation of this facility. But what's even more important is that we look at the positive benefits of this facility. It's translated into the promotion of family. It's translated into the promotion of a wonderful sport that has directly resulted in Guam's elevation and Guam's presence in regional and international competition. It has translated into 3+ individuals from Guam who have been given educational scholarships, sports scholarships, so that they can play the sport that they love and be educated simultaneously in an institution off island. It has resulted in families coming forward and saying, this has benefited my child. This has benefited my children. We want this similar facility to be constructed in the South. So, Mr. Speaker, obviously, I stand, first of all, understanding the desire of the mover of this amendment to defer the tax credit. But I think that by virtue of deferring the tax credit, and if we want to provide the incentive and the recognition to this nonprofit organization to immediately start work on the property identified and on the expenditure and investment of their resources, and the people of Guam likewise, I think it's imperative that we allow for at least the language to perhaps remain status quo so that they will pursue their activities as quickly as possible. So Mr. Speaker, I stand in opposition of this amendment, and I certainly ask our colleagues to think likewise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Durack and Senator Pangilinan on the added amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to the amendment. You know, Mr. Speaker, I can understand it, but I don't accept it. I don't accept that it's worth deferring this project. When we're taking a look at how people, let's just take a look at, number one, is it good for the economy? They're saying we can't afford it. Can we afford to borrow $1 trillion, really, to save our economy? That's what's the solution that the best economic minds we have in the country say, that when you have an economy that's struggling, one of the ways that you can assist the recovery of that economy is to inject activity into that economy. And obviously, President Obama and all the other members of Congress and all the economists say, if you have to borrow the money to inject the activity, to stimulate it, to recover, to invest. And that's what we're doing here. Are we ever going to be able to find our way out of economic doldrums if we just defer everything until what happens? How then does the economy recover? How then does the tax revenues flow into it unless there is economic activity? And are we going to sit back and wait for that economic activity to come to us because the federal government says it's going to do this? Or are we going to find ways and opportunities to stimulate the economic activity ourselves? This is to stimulate economic activity ourselves, investing in our children, and not deferring. It is a way in which we are trying to help ourselves. And the result of helping ourselves is that we provide opportunity for our children. It's pretty simple if you just follow all of the arguments that's occurring with the financial markets and the economic challenges that each community in every corner of the world is finding itself in. And this is what they're doing. Those that have money generated by the businesses and the private sector are encouraging the businesses and the private sector to save the money so that the banks can take it and lend it out and generate more money. Well, here we have businesses who have a social conscience. Yes, we have businesses who have social consciences. They're called democratically owned. But, Mr. Speaker, these business members of our community, when we say that, oh, it's just for them to continually profiteer by doing this program, they make zero money out of doing this. They go out of their way to participate in a program like this. It's easier for them to just write a check to the government and say, here's my tax, especially because we think it's so low that they shouldn't object. So why would they want to put themselves through all the problems of having to verify that the contribution was made, assess the value of it, open their books for the public auditor to look at and all that. Why would they put themselves through all that trouble when it's just easier to write a small check because they are taxed so little? It's because they also have a vested stake in this community. And they want to see the opportunities for children in this community. It takes a lot of trouble to go through this, you know. And to say now that let's defer it, let's have our children defer their dreams. Let's defer helping ourselves. That's what I see we're deferring. We're not deferring a soccer facility. We're not deferring a soccer field. We're deferring acting positively and proactively to help ourselves. That's what we're deferring. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to move forward. I want to take a little bit of risk. You know? And I'll come and come back and address this issue that all these guys put all this money in their pocket through this program. I'll address that later on. But I'm telling you, to defer this is just, even from an economic impact, even from the issue of not even thinking about the kids, but what can we do? We are, this 400, whatever the money is that's going to be put in a tax credit, has to be matched by money. Cold hard cash investment to double it. Now you tell me, when is that a bad deal? That you put down $1 and I'll give you another $1. Hell, the best financial advisors in Wall Street in this market today cannot even say that you're not going to lose money on the money you're putting in your pocket saving because the economy's bad and you don't want to spend it. People that were investing in treasuries 2 months ago were losing money on the value of their dollar by saving it in treasuries. So what we're doing here, the Soccer Association, the Football Association, by virtue of their membership in this global International Football Association, FIFA, the Federation of International Football Associations, by their virtue of their membership and by virtue of their desire to expand the facilities and the opportunities for recreational activities for children engaged in the sport of soccer on Guam, have committed to them that money from outside our economy is going to be pumped into our economy. And that by doubling that money, we're able to provide the facilities and the opportunity for our children and get it done quicker. We could stretch the construction period out 5 years, but does that mean the children keep playing, and parents still have to drive all the way up to Dedido? No. Again, if you take a look at what people are doing, what other leaders are doing in trying to fix this dang economy that nobody can get a handle on, one thing for sure is you got to generate economic activity within your community, get shovel-ready projects to go, and get outside capital to inject into it. And that's exactly what this does. We're going to get 50%, we're doubling our money by investing in this facility because somebody else is going to match it for us dollar for dollar. And that's why I don't think it makes sense to defer it, because we're not going to get that money to come in if we don't match it. We have to match it. It's not like FIFA says, promise me you're going to match it and I'll give you the $400,000 and you spend it now and 2 years later you put in your $400. It doesn't work that way. It means I give you $1, you put in your $1, off we go. You put in another one, I put in another one, off we go. So it's got to be matched. It's got to be done at the same time. And that's why the deferral, I don't think is going to work. And so I stand in strong opposition to this because I just don't think from an economic perspective it's the right thing to do. And from a deferral perspective of asking our children to defer their dreams, and defer good quality sports facilities for them, until we can afford it. I don't know. I just don't think that's going to happen. It never happened before until we structured it this way. And that's what made it happen. And I feel confident that with the Guam Football Association's commitment and this government's participation in that commitment and support of that commitment, we can make it happen again in a timely manner that will help not only our children, but in our economy recover. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Speaker Pangilinan. Senator Frank Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, I recognize the tight financial, fiscal affairs, environment that we're in today. I'll keep this short and simple. And I can appreciate, the mover of this amendment's concern on that. But I must object to this amendment. One, very simply and very basically, because if one were to look at the bill itself only amends the subsection on the credits to add the words "and facilities." The tax credits are already there. They're in law. And they're already being utilized. So to defer the tax credits on this that is being extended already is not just going to affect the proposed construction of the soccer facility in the south, but it may also affect the enhancements and the improvements that they're probably planning for and are needed and are in process already for the fields that exist in Derrida. So I'm concerned that with this amendment, then we're going to affect not only Agate, but Derrida. And we're going to affect not only something that's prospective, but we're going to affect something that is already very, very, very successful. So that's very simple. My concern, and I recognize, and yes, maybe there can be a discussion later on about future tax, because I like to be able to be in that discussion. But I think this is already a tax credit that that's already being provided. And despite the contention of one of my colleagues here, I don't think it's used to line the pockets of people. Tell that to the thousands of kids that show up on Saturdays and Sundays. Tell that to the thousands of kids who are going to benefit from it when it happens in the South. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Blas. Senator Tenorio, you're recognized on the ADA amendment.
Mr. Chair, many of the sentiments that have been expressed so far pretty much encapsulate my own thoughts. I appreciate the needs of this government, and I want to make this one observation, which has yet to been spoken of on this particular amendment, is that, we all go around the island. We go to the south, north, central. We go all over the place. Just look at the condition of the facilities that we have. Look at them. This government spends an infinitely small amount on the facilities. We really do. Yeah, we defer some taxes. It's okay. It's all right. We're allowing $1 million a year. We take in $500 million a year plus. How much do we appropriate every year in taking care of those facilities or building facilities? How many kids sit on benches that the rivets are rusted to the point that it cuts their jeans or their legs? How many facilities do we see that the bleachers don't even have the wood planks anymore? You don't have to look that far. You have to look in your own neighborhood, in your own community, and see the condition of the facilities. We're talking about allowing for these monies to be put to the building of a facility in the South, which is woefully inadequate at the current state. We need the money? Absolutely. If we spent that money in direct appropriations, to do the same thing, I bet you'll get a lot of people that would go along with it. But the final thought is that, you know, there's a movie I saw, Mr. Holland's Opus, I think it's called. Richard Dreyfuss, I think, was the actor. He was a teacher, and of course in the movie he taught music, you know, and there was budget cuts at some point later in the years when he was teaching. And one of the things that they articulated there is resonant here now, and that is that, you know, yeah, math, reading, writing, those are the core science, but you just can't get rid of music. You can't get rid of art. You can't get rid of sports. And I know that's not what we're trying to do here, but you can't marginalize the importance of those things at the same time. And you especially can't do it for those who have been living in our South. So I too, unfortunately, have to agree with most of my colleagues. I too object to the amendment.
Thank you very much, Senator Tenorio. I believe the last speaker on the ADA amendment is Senator Palacios, unless anybody else wanted to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the ADA amendment. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Speaker, even the deferment by 3 years to me is really very little with respect to what the government, what the people of Guam are giving up. For a tax deferment, a tax credit of $1 million, I believe that if we extend this, it is what would be due to the government with respect to tax due. And it's them to determine how much tax that they're going to pay from time to time. So for as long as they have this $1 million cushion, I don't know whether they'll ever exhaust it in 30 years or 50 years from now. I mean, we don't handle their books. And so I'm very leery about that. And my support of the amendment is not necessarily that I support the bill itself, but in the event that the bill gets lucky and gets passed, at least the other amendment would enhance the benefit of the people of Guam. We are giving up practically $1 million of good money. And for what? And how much, again, that tax credit is going to be extended? We don't know. We don't handle their financials. And that's my remark about that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Palacios. Are there any other speakers on the ADA amendment? If not, there being an objection, we'll call the question on the ADA amendment. All those in favor of the ADA amendment, please indicate so by raising your right hand. Five. The amendment fails. Senator Respicio, you have an amendment?
Thank you, Ms. Speaker, and thank you for recognizing me so I can then offer this amendment. I guess procedurally I'd like to withdraw my the amendment that I made earlier and offer this new amendment. It's been typed up, photocopies have been made and has been distributed. What I said earlier, that the bill, what the author is trying to do is extend a program that he started in a prior legislature, the 24th Guam Legislature, where it established tax credits for the Dedido Sports Complex and would allow this organization to extend that very successful program in the South. This amendment that I'm offering is basically taking a bill that I'd introduced along with yourself and others and just infuses that bill into this bill, and to take this a step further and require the terms and conditions and authorize the governor to enter into a memorandum of understanding. And so it'd be for a period of 25 years, renewable for another 25 years, and it's the same lot that's in question. So if we're really serious about creating sports programs and providing these kinds of positive, healthy alternatives, I'd ask for support for this amendment, so not only will we authorize the tax credits and development of these programs, we can begin to authorize the actual building of these facilities by allowing the governor, Parks and Recreation, the Guam Football Association to begin the arduous process of crafting this memorandum of understanding. I want to thank the main author for permitting me to put this amendment into his bill, because it's more expedient, and rather than waiting for my bill to go through the legislative process, I just as well ask that we do this this time right now, so that way we can begin seeing this steady little program in the southern area for the southern villages. So I offer this as an amendment. It's germane.
The chair finds it germane.
Wow.
Are there any other senators who wish to address the Respicio amendment? There were any objections to the? There being no objection, so it's accepted. We're going back to Bill 41. Senator Uggan, do you still wish to speak on the bill, or did you exhaust your comments? Anybody else wish to speak on Bill 41 as introduced and amended? I see Senator Palacios' hand up. Anybody else wish to speak on 41? That'll be Senator Palacios, and then Speaker Pangilinan will close. Senator Palacios, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition of Bill 41, and not so much for the establishment of the soccer field, but for the leasing out or I think the tax credit is still not selling well with what I like to see. Indeed, it is a noble gesture to put in private money to build something for our children and others' children. But this brought to mind, Mr. Speaker, the Dededo soccer field. There was a time about 2 years ago when the group came in and asking for a special water rate for the water that they used to water the grass, of course, and they were asking for an agricultural rate. And it was during this hearing when it was disclosed by my questioning that actually the association creates an annual surplus of over $400,000. And I said, and you still ask for a discount water rate? So these are the kind of people that we deal with when they say they're going to put in $1 million, and all they ask is just forgive us the $1 million in tax credit. The Dededo soccer field, right now, the people of Guam receive less than $12 a year. That was disclosed. Why? Because I found out that it's not even $1 a month. I mean, $9 a month, I think, or $10 a month. And it's for 30 years, so 2 years ago, when the hearing came about, it would have still be about 25 years. So let's say that 2030 then would be the people of Guam to consider whether to renew. And I asked the people of Guam who would still be alive that time to not renew for the same deal. Because I think they already prepaid. What? $10 a year for what? 30 years, that's $300. And it was disclosed during that hearing that they received, because they are members of the association of this FIFA or whatever they call it, they're receiving money directly from that organization. And now, parents are even beginning to be concerned about the fees charged, not to mention the money they collected for the advertisement and the banners that hang around those fences. Believe me, this group make money. They are making money, and I think that fine that they are going to do this, but look at the Dededo now. For 30 years, I think 25 more years remaining, or let's say 20 years remaining. And what the people of Guam get for that? They, of course, in the contract, it's my understanding that at the end of this lease, that all the improvement will belong to the people of Guam. But that's 30 years from now. In the meantime, the people of Guam already been paid probably $300 advance for the 30-year lease. That is my understanding. And I believe that I'm beginning to be skeptical about really what is the agenda or what is the motives of this group. I mean, if they have so much money, why can't they just donate it to some group, youth group, or whatever charitable organization? And then with this, again, it's not the building of the soccer field in the South. I mean, I support that. But who's going to profit for this? And then they say, I don't know whose pocket then is being lined with the surplus created on an annual basis by the Guam Football Association of over $400,000. This was disclosed in a public hearing, Mr. Speaker. And because of this, I don't trust that association. And in any way that I see that on this bill, I have to oppose this bill on that basis. And that's my remark on this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Palacios. Senator Peng, I'm sorry, I think Senator Guthridge wanted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one point. It is my understanding that some of the surplus, I don't know if it's all of the surplus, but some of the surplus that is collected by the association is invested in the young people that are brought in to participate in the games, to help subsidize uniforms and equipment and things of that nature. So I just want to say that because I did ask that question, I remember after the hearing 2 years ago, of some of the association officials. But of course, all of that is subject to verification. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dragon, Chair recognizes you on 41.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for allowing me to almost beg for you to consider and give me an opportunity to be able to speak on this. I think I've already alluded to my support of Bill number 37 as amended, or 41, I apologize, as amended. And I just would be remiss, having gone through or participated in a public hearing and having gone through some of the documents that are attached therein. And I just would like to read just a couple of testimonies that were provided, written testimonies that were provided by certain individuals as part of this committee report. Here there's one that says, "Dear Senators, I love soccer. Please support us with this sport." It says, "Thank you, 6-year-old from Talafofo." Here's another one that says, "Dear Senators, soccer rocks. Please build more soccer fields down south for my friends and family to enjoy. Thank you. Age 7 from Talafofo Elementary School again." We also, Mr. Speaker, have 48 additional signatures that are part of the committee report that reflects, it's my understanding, that a majority of them that put the individuals that put the signatures to this are either students, are either players, are of age in terms of the soccer association, active players, and they took the time out to submit and to participate in this petition requesting consideration of this body. So, Mr. Speaker, although it's already part of the written confirmation or report, I wanted to highlight it because it says a lot coming from these individuals who have actually enjoyed the field that is located, the soccer field that is located up north in Harmon. Individuals who have benefited as a result of staying away or being discouraged from participating in negative activities. They have directed a lot of their effort, not only toward the sport of soccer, but most importantly, I think the positive results that come out directly from a lot of our youth members participating in sports and in other activities. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to highlight that for the record, and I thank you for providing me your indulgence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Egan. Senator Pangilinan, would you like to close? Or
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I understand, that everybody has a different perspective on these issues. And I'm not one for handing out tax credits to businesses, for the sake of handing out tax credits. This concept is to develop a way in which we can maximize government resources to facilitate the construction of needed facilities that the government's not able to do. Because if we had the money, we would have done it. Because everybody wants to do it. Everybody wants to build facilities for our children. Everybody wants them to have good facilities, world-class facilities, standard facilities, regulation facilities, and allow the people to have access to it so that they can enjoy life here on Guam. So for me, it's not like I want to make some money for my friends or whatever. If there's a problem with the implementation of this program, then let's fix the implementation. If there's a problem with the verification of the tax credits and how they are calculated, let's fix that problem. Let's not say, let's not do it because there's a problem. And I think that, from my understanding, that the Guam Football Association responded to the public auditor's report, and the response usually comes after the report is issued. But in order to get this tax credit, it doesn't mean, I don't see how the way the tax credit worked, whether you could put that money in your pocket. We're talking about officers of the Guam Football Association that are Supreme Court justices and judges of the courts. And if there was a problem there, then we need to fix that, and we need to fix it so that we can implement the program of maximizing government resources by matching them with private sector resources to build facilities for our children that the government can't do itself. And we've done it up there, and if there is any kind of flaw that GETCA in looking at the calculations and certifying the calculations, then let's fix that problem. And if there is a problem, then we know what to fix now because the public auditor has already outlined it. And let's fix that. Let's not say, let's not do it. We are doing this for our children. We are doing this for the people of Guam. That's who we're doing it for. We're not doing it for the Guam Football Association because they're from somewhere else. Every member or every person who is touched by the activities of the Guam Football Association is somebody from Guam, lives here. So when we say this program helps that association, maybe, but the association helps the people of Guam. So that's who the benefits of this filter down to the children of Guam. And if we have a problem and if we think the Guam Football Association is corrupt, then let's file a complaint and say they are corrupt. And let's get the Attorney General after them because they are corrupt. Let's not say they are corrupt, we're not going to do anything about it. If we really believe that they are corrupt, then we have an ethical, moral, and legal responsibility to go after them. But let's not just throw that in the air and then walk away and say, I'm done. If there was problems with the handling of this, then let's get the Attorney General into it. Let's get him involved. But what we are trying to do is, this is a program and a concept. It worked. We have the facilities. If some people put money in their pockets up there, then let's go after them. But we can see that the program, as the way it was done, resulted in facilities up there, in which thousands of kids every single weekend benefit from it. And if other people benefited in the way that they're not supposed to, then let's fix that problem. Let's not say, let's not build it and let's deny the children the facility. Because if that's what you want to do, then find another way, because there is a need for it. There is an absolute need to expand recreational facilities here on Guam and for our children. And if you think there's somebody else out there that can do a better job, find it, work it, do it. I'll support it. But I don't think that we should get up here and throw all these things out there and then just walk away from it. If we are committed, like they say, to building the soccer field, then find the resources to do it. Put that commitment to work. That's what I'm trying to do. I looked at what has happened. Changes were made to the system, and we're going to have a better way of implementing it. And if we're still not satisfied, then we'll have the public auditor, approve the receipts. Let's go ahead. I have no problem. The Guam Football Association has no problem with that. Let's do it that way. But I want to be able to move forward in a program that resulted in a facility like that only cost the government in tax credit about $400,000, $500,000 to provide a stadium, 6, 7 practice fields, utilized by thousands of our citizens. And I think the people in the South deserve that. And if we're going to deny them that because we don't think that we're accountable enough, then let's fix the accountable structure and move forward on it. To say that tax credits is not the way to go, that's fine. But I'm telling you, in every successful economic power on this, in our Western Hemisphere, you will find that the tax credit system and program and tax incentives generate economic activity, generate good paying jobs. And that to say that the only way you're going to do that is to have the government just tax everybody without providing any kind of opportunities, the economy is not one-dimensional. And I think sometimes we think it's all one-dimensional. Good jobs are not created with one-dimensional economic policies of higher taxes and higher minimum wage laws. There's got to be some of the other economic factors that go into forming an economy. It's not one-dimensional, folks. And it can't be just solved by government alone. And I'm a Democrat. But I understand that. And I dare to find somebody that says that everything in a single and closed economy that is just controlled by government alone is the only way to go. The linkages are just too many. The influences, both positive and negative, from the different interests in a community all play into it. And it is the government's job to balance those interests so that they don't oppress one sector of the population. That's government's challenge. And we all understand that. We all know that. We all try to wrestle and grapple with it. But again, what I want to say, going back to this bill itself, is that it is a program that resulted in the facility you see up there now. And if you want to see that kind of facility in the South, for the people of the South, this is one way of doing it. And if you don't trust the people involved in it, then find a way to find other people you trust, involve them in the process, and let's build that facility down in Agat. Don't just quit. I'm not willing to. I'm willing to work through every single portion of implementing this to ensure that there is public accountability for this. But I won't stop. I want it done. I'm asking my colleagues, help me get it done. And if you think that somebody's going to steal and cheat in the process, then let's watch them very carefully and make sure they don't. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank,
And I would like to make the motion to add Senator Respicio as the third co-sponsor on the bill. And thank you for his contribution.
any objection to moving Bill? Any objection? There being none, move to voting file. Madam Speaker, I believe you have some news for the body that you'd like to share before we call the next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to announce that the governor has just signed Bill 51. The acting governor then has just signed it, and the AG, and the AG will be filing then her brief as well to the courts.
That's quite all right. We worked 10 days to get that through, so you have the right to. We're going back to the top of the second reading file, and I believe that's Bill number 2, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to accept Bill 21 LS as substituted by the Committee on Education.
Bill 2.
Bill 2, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the LS.
Okay, are there any objection to accepting the substituted bill? There being no objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to also make a motion to place Bill 2 on the third reading file, but I'd like to briefly discuss it.
Please.
Thank you. Bill 2, Mr. Speaker, actually is a bill that was introduced last term, and it was vetoed by the governor, and because his concerns were having more restrictions on the bill, and you yourself also was concerned about the administrative cost because of what we've been hearing in other institutions, and I didn't want to just override the bill, although I had your support as well then, and I felt that would be best to go ahead and reintroduce it this year. Briefly, what this bill would do is to create a foundation, a public corporation for the purpose of advancing excellence in education. So it's a foundation similar to that of what GCC and UOG has. It is to help support with initiatives, programs, and practices to help improve student performance and advance quality educational opportunities for children. It is a public, not-for-profit corporation in which then GPSS will be able to accept private gifts, donations, endowments, services, in-kind, grants, and other money in support of our public school system. The custodian of the fund will be GPSS, and currently will be the superintendent until such time that they're able to designate others. The change here is that it was originally at 1%, and at the testimony, the superintendent said, but if you really factor in how much, even if they raised $10,000, 1% of that would only be $100, so there was increased then to 10%. There'll be about a 9-member board of directors, and the input that we received from the superintendent compared to last year's bill was that originally she was just going to go ahead and make all the appointment on her own without any qualification. In this case, in page 4, if you look at it, is that aside from 2 who were former students of GPSS or the Guam DOE before, that there will be a member with an accounting experience, a member with marketing experience, and a member with some background in law. This was a specific requirement that the superintendent would like to place in this bill. And then at least one member also shall have the experience or professional background as a fund manager, and then the remaining members then would come from diverse backgrounds. They would establish then their own articles of corporation and establish their own bylaws also that would show the qualifications of the board. And what this would also do then is that it would actually repeal then the Every Child's Entitled to an Adequate Public Education Fund. And if there was any money left, that it was to be transferred over to this new fund once it is established and once they have already registered with Rev and Tax. And just to give you some information, when we first did that, we were just thinking that if there was any money left in the account that it was to be transferred, but I will report to you that as of today, there is absolutely a zero balance, so there's nothing in essence to transfer. What made that particular fund very restrictive is that for every $5,000 or less, they couldn't spend rather anything without having to, they can only spend rather up to $5,000 at a given time. And what they found that when they had some work that needed to be done, like air conditioning, at the time when they were using the monies, because it was to address the 14 points, that they could not use the money, that quickly and as needed. So, but anyway, there's no money in that fund, so therefore, and in the bill, it would actually repeal that part of the law. So in essence, that's what Bill number 2 is all about. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any senators who wish to speak on the bill? On the motion to place Bill 2 in, Senator Rector.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to speak on the bill. Funding public education is incredibly paramount to all of us. I've been on record quite regularly saying that we underfund our public education system by 2/3. And we can compare that when we look at, we can go right to National Center for Educational Statistics in the States, and we can see the exact dollar amounts on how badly we underfund our public education system and how badly we rob our children of the future and quality of education that they deserve. But I don't think this is the way to solve the problem. I appreciate the sentiments and trying to find new and creative ways to do it, but we really have a bad record of keeping accountable unappropriated funds such as this. Just the other day, the public auditor went and audited unappropriated funds at GPSS and found we had all kinds of problems with it. Now, does that mean that they're going missing or it's being stolen or misappropriated? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just says we're having trouble accounting for it. Now, that's not right. We're responsible to the people, and something like this just concerns me. It just, I can see the ability for abuse. And I just hate to see anybody get in that trouble. When you have a volunteer board that could potentially cover and handle millions and millions of dollars like this with very little oversight, it just worries me that it could get into trouble. So I stand opposed to Bill 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Rector. Senator Barnes.
Mr. Speaker. Contrary to the previous speaker, I stand in full support of Bill number 2 as authored by the good sponsor from Malolo, and I thank her for giving me the opportunity to be a part of her co-sponsorship. But, Mr. Speaker, in this time and age when we look at trying to be creative and look for alternatives to try and make sure that our educational system, at least within our community, is make sure that they're given the best. Sometimes things can be too restrictive in regards to how contributions from those within the community can give. And I say this with much heart. It's because I want to make sure that if there is an alternative out there, and if there is a way that those within the community, the private community, the business community, want to share and give, this would be that creative avenue. And Mr. Speaker, I think as we look into the past and seeing some of the concerns that happened there, I'd like to say I'm one of the more optimistic persons to see that maybe that when we provide an avenue to this this foundation, I think that there is a lot of positive effort that can be employed into this, and I say that because it gives private gifts, donations, in-kind services that in return can add up to other resources, not just financial resources, but yet don't have to, some of the business don't really want to say, you know what, we want to give this, we want you to take care of the paperwork, we want you to do that, just be able to give that. And what we have today, it has a lot of restrictions. And for me, Mr. Speaker, I just think that if you open this creativeness and be able to account for it and be able to hold the foundations accountable and know that the expertise is being acknowledged here, I think I believe that that's a positive way. And I just stand in support of this, and I thank the good author for at least realizing that when this was heard last term, knowing that it was vetoed by the governor, she really did have the votes to override it, but she said in all fairness and in as far as transparency and accountability, I'm going to reintroduce this again. And I said, you've got my support, and I thank her for giving me this. But I asked my colleagues to stand and rise and support this effort, because I think this is good for our children and for our school system here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Munoz-Barnes. Any other senator wish to speak on Bill number 2? Is there any objection to moving Bill number 2 to, or wait, do you wish to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I'd like the opportunity to close, because I understand, of course, whereas my colleague who had spoke earlier about, the mismanagement of funds, and more importantly, especially with non-appropriated funds, because I surely share those same sentiments. And if there's anyone who's really come down very hard on GPSS when we have our public hearings or oversight, as I. And that was one of the reasons in which I was able to qualify specifically the positions of these board of directors who are going to sit here, is to make sure that that does not happen, that we're going to have somebody with an accounting experience or accounting background, and somebody with marketing and advertisement, somebody with a background in law. So these are individuals outside, not in the system, but outside, that will be overseeing these funds to make sure that they are being used wisely. Because yes, we don't have whatever the government is able to give to everyone to the limit that they would like it. So therefore, this is an opportunity to help GPSS by allowing philanthropists out there, and I really hope we have some philanthropists out there who would like to donate to the public school system. There's an individual, business, and a person that I understand is ready to make some donations, but wants it for other programs other than just the facility in which the adequate fund is provided for. It's just waiting then to receive, to be able to donate these monies, but because the foundation hasn't been set up, then the money still hasn't been donated. So there are individuals out there, there's lots of money out there that could come into the hands of our our public school system to assist them for other programs or initiatives, that, and unfortunately, yes, not all the time can the government do that. And I understand that, and I'm definitely going to work very closely with my colleagues to make sure that, again, like former Senator Ben said, if there are any mismanagement of funds, then we want to report this as well to the Attorney General's office. So I ask my colleagues to support this, and if some of you may not, because for whatever reasons, I understand. But I hope I just have 8 votes at least to get it passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Any objection to moving Bill number 2 to the voting file? Hearing no objection, it's ordered. Can we take a short recess and allow the Speaker to resume her position here so that she can make the decision on whether or not we go forward?
Thank you very much. Yes, it is only 4:30, and I know how diligently you can work. So therefore, we will continue. The next bill on the agenda is Bill 9. We have 8 votes already? Oh, yes, that's true. Well, let's get this going, and then we can have yeah, because they just happen to be Ray Tenorio's bill. Senator Tenorio, you're recognized on Bill number 9.
No objection. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know we've been here for 2 weeks, and only 2 days have been on other bills other than 51, so thank you for the opportunity to move this bill. First, I'd like to move to accept substitute bill number 9 LS, the substitute bill of the Committee on Public Safety.
And you would like to speak on it?
Oh, just need to accept it first. The substitute bill.
Oh, I don't have the substitute.
Yeah, it was circulated by the Sergeant at Arms.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I see? That's why I said. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Then on the motion then to accept Bill 9 as substituted by the Committee on Public Safety, Law Enforcement, Citizens, without any objection, so ordered. Senator Tenorio, then motion to place.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Moved now to place Bill number 9 LS is substituted and accepted by the body on the third reading, and briefly comment on it.
Yes, please continue.
Madam Speaker, this bill basically gives the government the ability to enforce civil remedies on companies and organizations, including those in the government, who fail to give adequate and timely notice to individuals whose information is breached. We know that there are many organizations throughout our community have a pretty much a treasure trove of information. I know that you and a number of my colleagues have introduced bills in the past that deal with trying to protect identity of individuals. This bill goes to the core of that, especially to organizations who have this information available, excuse me, who have that information available by computer, and where the breach of that personal information is known, they are responsible for then giving timely notice to those individuals about that breach of information. It gives the authority for the Attorney General to go through the enforcement of this act and this statute where the breach of information, and again, it gives a portion of definitions on what a breach of a security system is, what entities and encrypted data, redacted information is included, and goes to the core of what really is becoming a major problem, not just in the United States, but internationally. Because the internet and the access to that information, especially from people who are very crafty in computers and know how to be able to get through firewalls, who know how to be able to get beyond the security mechanisms that we're all hoping keep our information private, are in fact using that information against them. And so this legislation would allow for greater security for personal information and would allow for the Attorney General to be able to bring action against a entity who fails to give prompt notice to those individuals whose information has been compromised. So I ask for my colleagues to please look this over and give it your support, Jesus Masi, and the opportunity to make the motion.
Yeah, I just have one question, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, under page 2, breach of security of a system means the unauthorized access and acquisition of unencrypted. I'm not a computer guru here or even a techie at all, but isn't like unencrypted, using an unencrypted system, unencrypted program, there's no expectation of privacy, that there's no security, and that it is the encrypted information that is supposed to be secure, and that's why you have a 128-bit encryption, so that you don't expect, you want the security and the privacy, and therefore when they break that and hack it, the encrypted portion, then that's the breach that would occur, and that if it's unencrypted, then it's just free-flowing and it's no expectation of security and privacy. At least that's my rudimentary understanding of the difference between encryption and unencryption.
Senator Tenor, do you yield to the question?
Sure. Madam Speaker, this legislation is drafted largely after other statutes that are found in other corresponding jurisdictions across the United States. The definition is one that is derived from similar legislation, which we find, as I said, in other corresponding jurisdictions across the United States. It basically goes to the core of whether the individual, the unauthorized access and acquisition of the unencrypted and unredacted computerized data that comprises the security or confidentiality of personal information maintained by an individual or entity as part of a database of personal information regarding multiple individuals that causes or the individual or the entity reasonably believes has caused or will cause identity theft or other fraud to any resident of Guam. So the encrypted data, by virtue of someone going in and extracting that information who is not authorized to do so, is in and of itself the breach of a security system, or security of a system. The fact that it's encrypted or not encrypted, the fact that an individual goes in and retracts the information, and the person who's maintaining that information has a reasonable expectation that that information can be used against the persons whose information has been exposed, is responsible for giving notice to the individual who, in fact, the information belongs to. I hope that's answered the question.
Senator Pangilinan?
It's all just going to, why don't we just then say that any unauthorized access and acquisition of any data, as long as it's unauthorized, is a breach of security. I don't know why we differentiate. And again, maybe it's just because I don't understand computer language, but I do know in reading the manuals that I have and what they tell me to do when I sign on to a HTTPS platform on a website, that all the information there is encrypted, and there is no, and anytime you access that without the proper password and sign in, log in authority, then you are breaching that security. So I just know that somehow it doesn't seem right, but I'll defer to the research that's been performed in doing this. But I just can't reconcile in my mind that if it's unencrypted, that a a breach or an unauthorized access of encrypted data is not defined as a breach of security. Why would that not be defined as such? So.
Well, I'll respond to this, and I'll say that I understand that many organizations, many companies don't have the money to do the encryption aspect of maintaining the information. We realize that. Yeah, there's 128-bit encryption. There's a number of different protocols, and the algorithms that go into creating those encrypted data is very expensive. And of course, the gentleman has a good point. Does it matter whether or not the information is redacted or encrypted, that someone actually went in and got the information? He has a good point. As a matter of fact, it kind of makes sense to me. Whether or not it's redacted or it's encrypted really is no consequence. The fact that you went out and got information you didn't properly have authorization to get is the breach of the security system. So, I'm willing to make that amendment when I close, if that's the will of the body or if that's the desire of any member. The information that is given to me is based on what I understand industry standard definition. So I'll consult with my staff before we get to that point, and I'm willing to proffer the amendment if the body's willing to accept it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Tenorio. On the motion, the main motion, are there any other speakers? Senator Cruz, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to address this issue. I support the concept because I really am concerned about private information getting out. And I'm not sure whether or not we can do this locally or whether or not it's national. But at the risk of exposing myself, when we get our bills from our credit card companies and from our banks, it really concerns me that though they're addressing it to us and they know it's our bill, they feel a need to put the entire credit card number on the bill, and it sits in our mailboxes. And even on the bank statements, if some of you check, when you use your check card, your bank statement prints out the entire check card number. And I just don't know whether or not we can do this locally. I mean, I have legislation on requiring that local vendors do something about not putting the whole thing on, but when our banks are national or something, I'm just not sure whether or not it's possible to require them to not place the entire number, all the 16 sequence number throughout the summary and the report, because if someone gets a hold of the mail before you do, it really does place us in the untenable position of being subject to all kinds of problems. And so I just don't know whether or not it's something that we can do locally. I haven't had a chance. And I know that the good senator has been doing considerable research on this, and I was just wondering whether or not there's a way. I know that we're talking more about the encryption on the computers, but even something as simple as getting our bills is leaving us open to considerable identity theft.
I'm going to go ahead and call for a brief recess. Okay.
Your bill won't have a problem.
We ain't got no problem with this. It's a breeze. It's a breeze.
When you feel this thick, it shouldn't take too much time. The shorter the bills are, the more they, so this very big bill, I'd say.
What time do we think we'll be finished? What time do you think we'll be breaking?
Dr. J, how about your bill 42?
What's Bill 9? Like I said, what's Bill 9? No, I'm just kidding, Mayor. Just kidding.
No, but they've been vetted through public hearings and the committee process. Okay. That's subject to interpretation. How about we just forego commending people and just slamming the bills down? You took up about half an hour already, Speaker.
So as soon as the bill goes out and there's a change, we move on to another one.
Well, 50 years on your The legislature is back in session. We are on Bill 9, and I understand that there's some discussion is going on with the author of the bill and Senator Cruz. So, have there been a resolution?
No, there's no resolution required at this point, Madam Speaker. The sentiments expressed by the gentleman are covered in federal law, and with regards to that, there's no need to amend this bill on that particular matter.
We are in session.
All right. Finally, I've consulted with my staff on the matter of the section of breach of security system, security of a system. Whether or not it's there is really not material. I would just assume leave it in place unless there's a reason or there's a desire to go ahead and take it out. But there really is no need to strike the language as it exists. So I want to thank all of my colleagues for the comments they've made thus far. And in closing on the bill, ask for all my colleagues to please vote for it. Madam Speaker.
On the motion, Senator Pangilinan, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have one amendment to the bill, and but it's not to add, it's to take away, so it'll be easier. On page 6, I don't understand why we limit, for example, a violation of this chapter by a Guam chartered or licensed financial institution shall be enforceable exclusively by the financial institution, primary regulatory entity within the Department of Revenue and Taxation. I would just delete that. I think that you can't exclude the Attorney General from any kind of authority over violation of Guam law, and to say that it shall exclusively reside in Rev and Tax, I think, in my opinion, is too limiting. They can be involved, they can do their own procedures, but to say that nobody else can bring any kind of charges or any kind of remedy against a violation, and let it rest wholly within Rev Tax, I think it would be inappropriate. And so I'd just move to delete section 3 or subsection 3 of that, of 48104.
On the motion to delete, then on page 3, page 6, section 3, and also on page 7, lines 1 and 2. Are there any objections? No objections, so ordered. On the main motion, are there any other speakers? None. Senator Tenor, you want to close? Or you just want, okay, motion then to place Bill 9 as substituted by the committee and further substituted on the floor to be placed on third reading file. No objection, so ordered. We're going to recess to allow the clerks and legal counsel then to engross all the bills and resolutions that were discussed today, and we will return at 8 o'clock to vote this evening. Please announce who are here in the hall to vote this evening.
Madam Speaker, there's Senator Pangilinan, Senator Munya Barnes, Senator Uggan, Senator Tenorio, Senator Guthert, Senator Palacios, Senator Ada, Senator Taitagui, Senator Espaldon, Senator B.J. Cruz, Senator Rory Respicio, Senator Frank Blas, Senator Eddie Calvo.
Sergeant at Arms, can you please call Senator Rector and find out if he is on his way?
And then excuse him for not voting, right? That's collegial. I just said that right here. Very good. That's very collegial. That's good. 1 point for Rashid. And then we'll just excuse him for voting. So what's the flowers on the left here? Jimmy's out there, so all accounted for. I was gonna say. I was gonna say, how many margarita drinks did you have tonight? You come back and what's his name? Score. Touchdown. What happened to Jimmy? Where's your flower, Dr. J?
They're in G, stand up, which looks like in G.
Where you going? Somebody sent me this email. Just do it right there at your desk. Go like this with your foot, and then count the number six, draw the six, and your foot's gonna go the other way. Try it.
Guess what? The people in the audience are figuring out what the hell you're doing, Tom.
Wow, he just did a dance for you.
Was it the 69?
Okay, now do it with three.
The other first bill that she introduced was the one I know 69.
Yeah, he stole his number. You know what? He was gonna fire his staff. Where's your flower, Dr. J?
What are we waiting for here?
Now let's see what side of the.
Well, Jimmy's here. Well, it seems like everybody's here except.
He's probably at a union meeting because he's presiding over it as president.
Maybe text us.
Now, if he would have resigned, he'd have no meeting here.
Madam Speaker, that's 40 seconds from now. Madam Speaker, that's 30
He was the last guy I would have thought would be the last guy here. I mean, with all the tomorrows and here, tomorrow time, and of course the Filipino was Filipino time, I wouldn't have put him past me. I would have been the last guy here. So Matt was the last.
And even kosher time, right?
And I know Senator Ben has been here since 5 o'clock.
Where's Brother Man?
Never left.
Now it's 9:16 and 36 seconds. You know what my password is? It's 9:16.
It's different. The Chinese don't work out. The mainland Chinese work out. Right before I came here. You went?
He said he's still in the meeting. Huh? Telling him that we're ready to go.
daughter's gonna be waiting outside that Paseo baseball field in a few minutes, and it's, you know. It's time to rock and roll. He's not here, he's not here.
Man, he's got a responsibility to the people of Guam. He's not here. Can we go supposed to vote?
I agree. It's a 40-minute drive.
Especially the way you drive.
Okay, start.
The legislature is called into session, back into session. We are here to vote this evening. I hope you all have copies of the bill. So we are on, we left at the second reading. Senator Respicio, you recognize.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Notwithstanding the House rules, I move to suspend any further discussion on the remaining items in second reading and go straight down to the voting file.
On the motion without any objection, so ordered. We're now on the voting file. Bill number 37. Can the clerks please read?
Number 37, as substituted by the Committee on Utilities, Transportation, Public Works, and Veterans Affairs, and amended on the floor. Introduced by A.B. Palacios Sr., T.R. Munya Barnes, T.C. Ada, Judith T. Wampan, Judith P. Gutherts. An act to reenact Chapter 6 of Title 12 Guam Code annotated relative to reestablishing the Guam Regional Transit Authority.
Roll call.
Senator Ada. Senator Agun. Senator Blas. Senator Calvo. Senator Cruz. Senator Espaldon. Senator Gutherts. Senator Munya Barnes. Senator Palacios. Senator Pangilinan. Senator Rector. Senator Respicio. Senator Tidegui. Senator Tenorio. And Senator Wampat.
Yes. Substitute Bill number 37 received 14 yeas and 1 absent. Substitute Bill number 37 is duly passed. Bill number 34.
Bill number 34, COR, is amended on the floor, introduced by V.C. Pangilinan, Judith T. Wampat, Ray Tenorio. An act to amend Section 2108 of Title II Guam Code annotated relative to consideration of bills before Legislatura, the legislature.
Roll call.
Senator Ada. Senator Agun. Senator Blas. Senator Calvo. Senator Cruz. Senator Espaldon. Senator Gutherts. Senator Munya Barnes. Senator Palacios. Senator Pangilinan. Senator Rector. Senator Respicio. Senator Tidegui. Senator Tenorio. Senator Wampat.
Yes. Bill number 34 received 14 yeas, 1 absent. Bill 34 is duly passed. Resolution number 13.
Resolution number 13, COR, as amended on the floor, introduced by Arthur Respicio, TC, Ada, FB, Agun Jr., and others, relative to adding a new section 4.02.05 to Rule 4, convening and sessions of Iminatenta na Legislatura ng Guam o din a Reglamento 30th Guam Legislature Standing Rules to increase transparency in the legislative process.
Roll call.
Senator Ada? Senator Roggen? Senator Blas? Senator Calvo? Senator Cruz? Senator Espaldon? Senator Gutherds? Senator Munya Barnes? Senator Palacios? Senator Pangilinan? Senator Rector? Senator Respicio? Senator Tidegui? Senator Tenorio? Senator Wampat?
Yes. Resolution number 13 received 14 yeas, 1 absent. Resolution number 13 is duly passed. Resolution number 15.
Resolution number 15, COR, as substituted by the Committee on Rules and amended on the floor. Introduced by R.J. Respicio, Judith T. Wampent, A.B. Palacios Sr., and others. Relative to presenting an agenda of priority concerns for Guam on federal territorial issues for proposed action to President Barack Obama and to the Congress of the United States.
Roll call.
Senator Ada? Senator Ogden? Senator Blas? Senator Calvo? Senator Cruz? Senator Espaldon? Senator Gutherds? Senator Munya Barnes? Senator Palacios? Senator Pangilinan? Senator Rector? Senator Respicio? Senator Tidegui? Senator Tenorio? Senator Wampat?
Yes. Resolution number 15 received 14 yeas and 1 absent. Resolution number 15 is duly passed. Bill number 35.
Bill number 35, COR, as amended on the floor, introduced by B.C. Pangilinan, T.R. Munya Barnes. An act to repeal and reenact Section 4 of Public Law 26-100 relative to the composition and duties of the task force and the return of Tijan properties.
Roll call.
Senator Ada? Senator Ogden? Senator Blas? Senator Calvo? Senator Cruz? Senator Espaldon? Senator Gutherds? Senator Munya Barnes? Senator Palacios? Senator Pangilinan, Senator Rector, Senator Respicio, Senator Titagui, Senator Tenorio, Senator Wampat.
Yes. Bill number 35 received 14 yeas, 1 absent. Bill number 35 is duly passed. Bill number 41.
Bill number 41 LS, as amended on the floor, introduced by V.C. Pangilinan, T.R. Munya Barnes, R.J. Respicio. An act to amend Section 2 of Public Law 24-33 and to amend Section 77301, Section 77302, Section 77303, Section 77305, Section 77306, and Section 77307 of Title 12 Guam Code annotated relative to the construction of soccer facilities in the Southern Sports Complex.
Roll call.
Senator Ada. Senator Uggan. Senator Blas. Senator Calvo. Senator Cruz. Senator Espadon. Senator Gutherds. Senator Munya Barnes. Senator Palacios. Senator Pangilinan. Senator Rector. Senator Respicio. Senator Titagui. Senator Tenorio. And Senator Wampat.
Yes. Bill number 41 received 12 yeas, 2 nays, and 1 absent. Bill number 41 LS is duly passed. Bill number 2.
Bill number 2 LS, as substituted by the Committee on Education, introduced by J.T. Wampat, T.R. Munya Barnes. An act to add a new Chapter 11 to Division 2 of Title 17 Guam Code annotated relative to authorizing the Superintendent of Education to establish a public corporation for the purpose of advancing excellence in education. This act shall be known as the Foundation for Public Education Act of 2009.
Roll call.
Senator Ada. Senator Uggan. Senator Blas. Senator Calvo. Senator Cruz. Senator Espadon. Senator Gutherds. Senator Munya Barnes. Senator Palacios. Senator Pangilinan. Senator Rector. Senator Respicio. Senator Titagui. Senator Tenorio. And Senator Wampat.
Yes. Substitute Bill number 2 LS received 14 yeas, 1 absent. Substitute Bill number 2 is duly passed. Bill number 9.
Bill number 9 LS, as substituted by the Committee on Public Safety, Law Enforcement, and Senior Citizens, and amended on the floor, introduced by Ray Tenorio. An act to add a new Chapter 48 to Title 9 Guam Code annotated relative to notification of breaches of personal information.
Roll call. Senator Ada? Senator Ogden? Senator Blas? Senator Caldwell? Senator Cruz? Senator Espaldon? Senator Gutherds? Senator Munya Barnes? Senator Palacios? Senator Pangilinan? Senator Rector? Senator Respicio? Senator Tidegui? Senator Tenorio? And Senator Wampat? Yes. Substitute Bill number 9 LS received 14 yeas, 1 absent. Substitute Bill number 9 LS is duly passed. Senator Respicio, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I move to adjourn subject to call of the Speaker, I just want to share an observation and thank our colleagues. If you see, we had 2 weeks of session, and there's very little paper on each of our desks. Usually at the conclusion of a 2-week session, we would each walk away with a case of paper, and I think this is a big accomplishment so far in our effort to try to go as paperless as possible. And I want to thank you and our colleagues for all the cooperation. I also want to request that the clerk take custody of the second reading file. There are bills that we have not yet addressed, but those bills can certainly, the copies of these bills can be used again should they make it back on the session agenda. And with that, Madam Speaker, I move that we adjourn, subject to the call of the Speaker. No?
Okay, this legislature is adjourned subject to the call of the Speaker.